Right. Well, good afternoon. My name is Briggs White. I'm the Deputy Executive Director for the Energy Communities Working Group. I hope you found this morning's program informative and you found some opportunities to network, and hopefully that'll drive some applications on this particular funding opportunity that we've talked about today, or maybe just met somebody that can be helpful in the future for you. And what we want to talk about in the next segment of today is really building partnerships and really hopefully inspire you, maybe share an example or two, and think about how we can better connect. Following this, there'll be an additional opportunity with office hours, as Brian mentioned, where you can learn more about federal and other funding opportunities, but also just opportunities to network with your peers and maybe folks that are new to your network. And so with that, I'd just like to say, again, thank you to our hosts. Thank you for turning out. And, you know, we've actually had a pretty good turnout from really across Central Appalachia. So that's great to see. And thank you for dedicating part of your day to be here. So with that, I'm going to introduce our panelists, and then I'll ask some questions, and then we'll come to you for a little Q&A if you'd like to make a comment or ask a follow-up. So immediately to my right, we have Petra Mitchell. Petra Mitchell is the president and CEO of Catalyst Connection, a private nonprofit economic development organization based in Pittsburgh, dedicated to helping manufacturers with management consulting and technical assistance, leading to business growth and job creation. Petra has over 30 years experience in manufacturing operations, technology acceleration, and business development. So welcome, Petra.
Thank you.
All right. Next, we'll go to Justin. Justin Williams serves as the director of the West Virginia Affiliated Construction Trades, or ACT, an organization focused on promoting a highly qualified and skilled construction workforce. A division of the West Virginia State Building Trades, ACT assists local unions in the construction industry. So welcome, Justin. Thanks for being here. Probably don't need to introduce Mike Graney to many of you, but if just in case, Mike Graney is the executive director of the West Virginia Department of Economic Development, where his team works to strengthen communities and expanding the state's economy to increase the quantity and quality of jobs. Graney's a lifelong West Virginian and successful entrepreneur. So thanks for being with us, Mike. And then at the end of our row here, we have John Tuggle. John Tuggle is the executive director of the Region 4 Planning and Development Council, serving Fayette, Greenbrier, Nicholas, Pocahontas, and Webster counties in central West Virginia. His organization plans for the economic growth of the region with a focus on the facilitation, infrastructure, particularly water, wastewater, and other community development projects. So John, thanks for being with us. So to kick us off, Petra, I'll come to you first, and maybe you can tell us just a little bit about Catalyst Connection, sort of what inspired the creation of it, and how's that organization evolved over the years?
Yeah, great. Thank you. Is this on? This is on. Thank you. And thanks for having me. So Catalyst Connection is a nonprofit, and we were started as a Pennsylvania Industrial Resource Center. So that's state funding, really as a response to the decline of the industrial age in Pennsylvania. So how can we help when the steel industry was really declining, closing? How can we help small and medium-sized manufacturers diversify from those effects and enter new markets and remain viable businesses? We're also a Department of Commerce Manufacturing Extension Partnership, or MEP affiliate. So that's a similar mission. We work with small, medium-sized manufacturers, and there's an MEP now that covers every square inch of the United States, including right here in West Virginia. Our MEP affiliate is part of the WVU Industrial Extension Office. So over the years, this has been going on now for 35 years. We've been an MEP affiliate for most of that time. I would say definitely since, in the last 10 years, we've really been able to diversify and bring in other funding sources to help manufacturers in our community, including the Appalachian Regional Commission, the ARC. They have been a major funder of ours through the POWER program, the ARISE program, and area development funds. So we've been super grateful for that. And I think I'll be able to talk a little bit more later about some of the work we've done under those programs.
Well, it was exciting to see that ARISE grant. So congratulations. And along those lines, Mike, I wanted to come to you next and provide a state perspective. I know the state's had a number of wins, and maybe you can just talk a little bit about that and sort of how the state has helped nurture those projects.
Great, thanks. Great question. We've had a lot of wins, and I mean, Nucor, Berkshire Hathaway Energy, Precision Cast Parts, LG, Form Energy, Fidelis, Watt Fuel Cell, Boston mentioned earlier. That one hadn't landed. But I'm also pleased to talk about the expansions. Stamp, who's here earlier, and then Alcon. So those expansions, frankly, are as important as attracting new deals. And I think we've been winning because, you know, West Virginia is small, but makes us very nimble, and which makes us mighty, and we can respond to people very quickly. The governor can put together his cabinet and answer questions just very quickly. And so we're very responsive. I will also tell you that in the 5.5 years I've been in this role, I think that we're collaborating, cooperating, and communicating. And previously we were criticizing, complaining, and competing, right, John? So that really makes a difference. And that's why we've been winning. And, you know, the governor asked us to get serious about intentionally diversifying our economy. And I think we've done that. So, and more to come. So stay tuned.
Thanks, Mike. And Justin, I wanted to come to you next. Can you just talk a little bit about how the trades have been involved in some of these kind of economic development projects?
Sure, thanks. And a number of these ones we've got memorandum agreements where the developer has agreed to use project labor agreements to make sure that the work being done there is local workers who live in those communities. And, we've seen it all day today. That's kind of the focus of this money, was to invest in our communities. And that's what we do. We represent 20,000 construction workers across West Virginia, and they live and work in those communities, and they volunteer in those communities. And, I think to get to Mike's point, we're all working together because we all want West Virginia to be successful. And that's the only way we can do it is by working together to kind of work on these projects. We talked about the Nicholas project that got announced last week. We've submitted a support letter with them and working with the community and technical colleges to, strengthen these apprenticeship programs that we have. And we're trying to grow those and invest in the next generation of workers to train for this type of work. And in the construction industry, it's not new, but it's a little bit different. So we're just making sure that we work with our partner contractors too, right? This is what the trades have a little bit different, is we partner with our contractors, because if they're not successful, then our members don't go to work. And so we really do believe in that partnership method to making sure that West Virginia is successful.
Thanks, Justin. And along those lines, John, I want to come to you next. Thought it was really important to have a local or regional economic development leadership perspective. You're really providing the connectivity between the communities, because these projects happen in a place. And so there's communities that are involved, but also connecting that with the economic development, in many cases, the private sector that's going to be moving on the project. So John, can you just share maybe a few observations from your perspective?
Yes, and I do really appreciate the opportunity to be here. Regional Planning and Development Councils were established back in 1971, and that was to do exactly what you just said, to have the public, private, and everywhere in between collaboration to try to develop infrastructure, mainly to facilitate any growth, economic growth, or any type of other growth within communities. An economic planning and development council is called council because our board is made up of all the towns and the county commissions within that region. So I have 26 towns and 5 counties. So, and all those are my bosses. So we have to negotiate everything from the far left to the far right and everywhere in between, because we have that within our region. And our main advice to whomever, whether it be private sector or the government entity that approaches us, is we have to put a team together. We know what that team is supposed to be made up of. We work with agencies like Ryan sitting up front. He's tired of hearing from me all the time. But we know the team that you need whenever you bring that to our table. and we will tell you who to put on the team and when they need to be there. They may not need to be there right up front, but that's where we go. And without that collaboration, you don't get anywhere.
Well, that's the perfect segue to where I want to go next. So Petra, from the private sector perspective, who needs to be on the team and what are sort of some key considerations?
Well, certainly, sorry. Okay, that's better. I just want to, in terms of some considerations that I mentioned in Pennsylvania and West Virginia, we're talking 30, 40 years of industrial decline, right? And we have many communities around Pittsburgh that have never recovered from that. And they're still struggling. So when a company comes into this community, we're very grateful to have them. But I've noticed a couple times, even very recently, their expectations are just so unrealistic, right? So the question is not, oh, hey, I need to hire 10 experienced machinists. Can you, help me hire 10? The question is really, where is the training for machinists? What can we do to support that training? How do we get more people into that program so that we can grow the pool for everybody and not just steal, this, I'm a shiny new company, I'm just going to steal the workforce from my local community. So that's really an area that we have been trying to promote. And I'm grateful that many of the companies we're talking to are agreeing with that. And we are able to work together. So we're able to bring workforce development, economic development, area high schools. I think the high schools are a key partner in this because there's many students now that are looking for options, right? And so we just need to introduce them to these options and make them aware of what's available to them and what their future could look like. So I think education, workforce development, economic development, private sector, really need to come together on this, and primarily around the workforce, raise the pool of people that want to work in this industry.
I love it. And I just want to build off of that. Brian mentioned in the Q&A that the applications for 48C will require community and workforce considerations. One way to do that is by partnering with an organization on workforce. Could be a community college, workforce board, or organized labor organization. And Justin, I want to kind of have you answer Petra's call to action there. I mean, how do we ensure that there is a sufficient skilled, trained workforce?
Sure. So, we in the trades, we have 14 crafts that we represent, anything that you can imagine as far as industrial, commercial construction. And we have 35 training facilities that already exist in and around West Virginia. So Pittsburgh, Eastern Panhandle, Hagerstown, Maryland kind of areas. And so we're training about, 2,500 apprentices at any given time in our 14 trades. And we're looking to increase that just to make sure that we have that demand for, this construction that's coming and making sure that it's timed right, because we can't take in 50 extra apprentices today if the job's not there, tomorrow or whatever. So, I think part of it goes back to communication and being part of the team so that you can prepare properly for that job and to maintain those jobs down the road too. So, construction is just one piece of the trades. It's also about maintaining those facilities for the next 100 years when they become commercially viable. And we've seen that in the trades historically. If West Virginia, we're lucky. We've done a lot of work in our coal-fired power plants, as Senator Manchin talks about. We've built all those things in West Virginia that have maintained our history. And now we're building every windmill in West Virginia and solar farm. And we want to continue to do that on the manufacturing side and work with our manufacturers to maintain those facilities while having a good trained workforce to operate them as well. And so, we're doing everything we can as far as partnering with community and technical colleges. We've got our apprenticeship programs that go to CTEs. Just last week, there was a Skills USA contest in Morgantown. And I know several of our crafts were there judging those competitors in high school to kind of drive them into this. We're working with high school counselors so that, it's not just go to college, right? Apprenticeships are a trendy word, but we want you to make sure that you're going into a good apprenticeship like ours that have good benefits and wages and a pension, healthcare. So that way it is not just, a job, it's a career for a lifetime. And giving back to your community because you have all those things, and we're paying into hospital systems and maintaining those systems for the next generation as well.
So Mike, we don't want to train people for jobs that don't exist. So let's look out into the future a little bit. And, West Virginia and Central Appalachia certainly have some assets to build off of. So sort of take a look into the crystal ball here. Where do you see West Virginia going in terms of energy sectors and economic development opportunities?
Yeah, great question. So, we've been an energy state since before we were a state. We're going to continue to be an energy state. We have embraced the concept of all of the above and more. And so we're going to continue, like the mainline church, we're going to bless and add. We're going to bless the stuff we've got, but we're going to add to it. And so coal will play an important role, natural gas, biomass, hydro, all the things we've, been relying on up to this point. Solar, we have a bunch of solar under development. Wind will continue to add to that in portfolio. Hydrogen is coming like freight train. Geothermal is going to be very, very appropriate throughout West Virginia. Pump storage. I mean, who knows what pump storage is? I do, but yeah, see, everybody knows. So, but we need those assets here because, the prediction is there's going to be 5 times the demand by 2050 than we currently have. So, I don't know if you saw the article recently that America is running out of power. Well, it's true. And so we're attractive right now to a number of different industries because we actually have power. And we've got to add to that to continue to keep up. We've got to improve our transmission lines, improve the microgrids, and really work on, resiliency and sustainability in the power sector. But let me tell you who's after us right now. Who needs a lot of power and a lot of water? Data centers, right? Data centers. So we've got 4 trillion gallons of water developed under the state of West Virginia daily. We have the energy now. We're going to be adding to that portfolio. And so there's a big space race for those, data centers to actually develop. And I think, there's sort of a Northern Virginia has grown weary of all the data centers there. So we end up being attractive along those lines. We're going to continue to pursue manufacturing just because, manufacturing brings the entire supply chain with it, the intakes and the off takers. So those are very, very important. Nucor announced that they were going to have 800 jobs. It'll be 4,000. It really will be just because of all the inputs and the off takers. And we've already, heard from a number of folks who are looking to locate here to support the Nucor effort. And that story goes on and can be repeated again and again and again. So energy, data centers, manufacturing because of the supply chain.
Mike, thanks for that. And interesting, you mentioned the data centers. We were in Colorado last week talking about data centers, and those need power, and they need power immediately. And that seems like an interesting opportunity. And one new revelation I learned was that a lot of them doesn't even matter where they are in the country. So agnostic with respect to geography. So hopefully that represents an opportunity to repurpose some of these coal mines or coal plants and things with new economic development. But we're going to need the power, and good thing there's a lot of incentives out there in the clean energy space. John, same question to you, but maybe you can provide more of a local or regional perspective. Sort of where do you see the local economy going?
Well, as far as our region, one thing, and Mike can tell you, and so can Ryan, West Virginia is very diverse in its opportunities and the terrain and the areas that you can work in. Southern West Virginia is tough. That's all there is to it. It was completely dependent on coal pretty much, and that's no longer there. So it's a pivoting from that's pretty darn difficult. That being said, there's some opportunities that are arising. One is EVs, electric vehicles. You see a lot of that. We actually are partnered with Region 1 in Southern West Virginia and have a study going on right now that will identify the charging station locations strategically for EVs throughout, our regions. The state has their main EV plan, but that's only on the interstates. That's not once you get off the beaten path. So what we're working on is basically when you go to Marlington, you go to Richwood, you go to Pax, West Virginia, those small towns, those little areas, they need to have something to offer too. So those areas are around. Hardwoods are another thing that goes with the economic development in our area. You may be familiar with the Great Barrel Factory in White Sulphur. That was one that just really took off. Measuring how well you do from your original game plans, that the jobs that went with that particular initiative, we worked with them and got an EDA grant, and they took off. They had a certain amount of jobs. They doubled that. Plus, they had the spin-off of Appalachian Stave, which makes the wood product, and they have like 4 different facilities now that do that. So when we measure success, it's basically on jobs, and that just exploded. So there are opportunities. A little tough to come around though.
Justin, what about the skilled trades? Where do you see things going next, either in terms of training workers or maybe industry segments?
Sure. I mean, we'll continue to work in all the energy industries and training on that, and just getting the proper training on our hydrogen hub opportunity. We're in that round, working in that training, just growing the storage capacities of these other energy industries. We've been working with a lot of the companies that Mike's talked about, Nucor and Form, on those battery developments and all the components that go into that. You're seeing in Clarksburg, they redid the airport in Clarksburg, and now because of that, there's 3 new kind of manufacturers coming into that facility, right? And you're seeing other companies that are going to be the components of what we've talked about here, just like what it's grants for, is all the pieces that go into it, just building all those facilities. And as far as construction, we're really lucky because our training programs are flexible because they're managed by both the labor and the contractor side of things. And so they determine what the programming is for those apprenticeships. So just like John was saying, like if you're in Parkersburg, it may be one industry. If you're in Huntington, it's a different industry. So they can be flexible in training, but also going out and getting on the job training and getting a paycheck while they're doing this. And that's, kind of one of the strongest selling points of an apprenticeship program is, there's no debt, you're getting paid while you do it. And we're also committing back to the community. And the other part of it is generally apprenticeship programs take no government money. So we're not asking for anything. Our members pay for it out of their own pockets to invest back into their workforce so they can go get upskilled, get trained for the next kind of generation of workers. I've seen a number of stories where multiple generations of workers have built a coal-fired power plant. Now the grandson or son is building a windmill. And so, we'll continue to see that kind of transition and everything, but we'll work on anything. If, we're like the opposite of Field of Dreams. We'll build it and we hope they come. So.
Well, I love it. Petra, sometimes an example of a success story helps kind of clarify how it can all come together. And I know you've been part of a lot of different things. So can you maybe just share a few reflections?
Yeah, well, as I mentioned, we've been the recipient of power grants now for a number of years. And I just talked about workforce, but I'm going to transition and talk about supply chain and building local supply chains. And so for a number of years now, we've been working around the shale power or the shale gas supply chains in southwestern Pennsylvania and West Virginia. So this is a full partnership with our colleagues at WVU and WVMEP. It really speaks to that role that intermediaries like us can play in that education, that outreach, the coordination, the networking. So just as an example, around the shale gas industry over a 3-year window, and this was mostly during COVID, so this was even more challenging, we were able to do over 12 industry tours and 4 conferences. And what I mean by that is taking small and medium-sized manufacturers to actually see a gas site, a well pad, getting them to see a transmission station or a distribution or something like that, some downstream activities in partnership with the buyers, the energy, the operators, and so forth. We were able to do almost 20 deep dive training events, learning about the requirements, learning about, different qualifications that they needed or technologies and so forth. All of that really resulted in over 250 companies being engaged and over 100 companies then actually pursuing new business. And within just a few months, half of those reported they actually got new business. So, we're going to be following up with them. That was about 2 years ago now, really doing a follow-up to see what has happened as a result of that. But I feel very, very confident the results are going to be positive. That connection, buyers and sellers using an intermediary to provide education, awareness, collaboration, I think that's a key to success.
So Justin, keys to success. Can you think of either an example of where something has went well, or maybe just sort of what are you looking for in terms of a metric for success?
Yeah, I think just getting people out to work, right? I mean, we've got members and that's what they want to do. We're all here trying to learn about this, but the people I represent, they just want to get up and go to work and have a safe community to raise their families in and provide for their families with good jobs and benefits. And so, it takes all of us to get the project here and, all of you to do that, and investors and to get all the pieces on the front end of it. So success is when, not only do we get the announcement, but we get that first like shovel in the ground, or we start putting the final pieces together for a project. And you talk to one of our members and they say, well, that bridge or that building, like they can tell their kids about it, and it's growing West Virginia so that their kids can stay here. For far too long, a number of my friends growing up, they don't live in West Virginia anymore. I mean, we've already heard from 3 or 4 people that no longer live in West Virginia. I want to stay here. I have 2 kids. I want them to be able to stay here. Not that they have to, but I want them to be able to. And that's what success is for us, is that our members' kids can stay here and work.
That's a wonderful vision. Mike, you've talked a lot about recent wins. Can you just maybe share with us some insights in terms of like, what are you looking for a successful project? Like, do you have any metrics or anything that you're looking for?
Sure. Obviously it's capital expenditure. It's the number of jobs created, and it's the payroll. Those are the things that are most important to us as we look for a project or look to a project that's going to expand. And those are the measurements we use and determine whether we're going to, support them maybe with some additional incentives that we wouldn't otherwise be able to invest in. So that's it. That's really as simple as it is. And I'm actually a member of the state economic executive directors organization, and every other state that participates in that group, there are about 40 states. That's exactly the measurements they're looking for as well.
Oh, that makes sense. And John, exciting announcement in Nicholas County, that solar on mine lands project. But just anything else going on in your neck of the woods that you feel like you'd like to share as maybe an example?
Well, it doesn't go along so much with manufacturing, but outdoor rec is king in our region, especially. We have snowshoe, we have the New River Gorge, we have everything in between, and there is support for businesses that can make things. ATVs, we have some ATV production there in Nicholas County. There's some businesses there that are doing some ATV things. We also have, we try our best to encourage some of our existing coal mining support groups that manufacture things for coal mines to pivot to those type initiatives. And it's a little bit hard sometimes to do that, but once they do, the market's global. They can go all over with that once they get in the hang of it, because these guys are experts at what they do. You just need to convince them, that they can make a part for an ATV as well as they can a coal miner. Other than that, I mean, we do target these type programs like 48C as for these entities and try to push them into those types of things. And once they get those, we feel like that's a success just to get them in the game. So that we try very hard to do that.
Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, we hear a lot about outdoor rec in addition to all these energy and manufacturing related things, particularly in Appalachia. With that, as a heads up to our audience, if you all have a question or a comment, we can come to you next, but I'd like to finish with one lightning round of questions for our panelists, which is really what can your organization or the organizations that you represent bring to a 48C project, or more generally to a manufacturing or economic development project? So what about an MEP perspective? What can you bring to the table?
Supply chains, local supply chains. So, our RISE project, you mentioned that it's a 5-state initiative around helping small and medium-sized manufacturers enter new energy economy, clean energy economy supply chains. We have 30+ year relationship with these small and medium-sized manufacturers. They know us, they trust us. We can help them do the things that they need to do to be successful in this new energy economy.
Sounds great. How about you, Justin?
Sure. I think it's risk mitigation, and we've talked about that a little bit today. But when you sign a project labor agreement and you're using the trades, it really is a risk mitigation, because in our agreements, there's dispute resolution clauses, there's no strike, there's no lockout. You're getting a skilled, trained workforce that's not going to have a disruption to this. You had a 4-year window to get it done, and so you've got that locked in there. And then also you're paying Davis-Bacon wages. We have a CBA that are going to those members and their families. You're getting apprenticeships, so you're meeting those trainings. And so, it's kind of a win-win for everybody when you come to the trades, because we're providing you that skilled workforce. We're getting you through it on time and under budget. And when it comes down to it, paying a Davis-Bacon wage, the cost of construction projects, wages are generally less than 30%, and you're getting 24% for using apprenticeships and union trades. And so basically you've covered the cost of construction in the project by using Davis-Bacon wages and apprenticeships. So it's kind of free money for that. No such thing as free money, but it basically is free money. So.
Okay, Justin. Mike, how about particularly state economic development organization, but generally what can state governments offer folks looking to put together projects?
So consider the West Virginia Department of Economic Development your concierge service, right? We connect needs with resources, and that's what we do. So if you need a meeting with the DEP, you need a meeting with tax, you need a meeting with the Department of Highways, you need to access some subject matter expert, you need a meeting with WVU or with Marshall or with any of the CTCs or, 4-year universities, we're that connection point. And one thing that I've really come to know in the 5.5 years I've been on the job, economic development is difficult. It's complicated, and it takes local, state, and often federal cooperation to get projects done. And I'll tell you, as these communities really look to sort of, repurpose themselves, to really revitalize themselves, they need to tell their own story. They need to tell the story of what they can deliver and why projects should come to that community. And so we need more of that happening throughout the state of West Virginia. And it might be that they only have a 10-acre site. Well, so what? We get asks for 10-acre sites all the time. It may be that they have a workforce that is hungry to go to work. So I encourage all the communities to really do a good job of telling their own story and talking why a project should locate in that community.
Love it, Mike. Well, John, it's kind of like Mike was teeing you up. So what's your story, John?
Well, yeah, and we actually work very closely with Mike on a lot of things, and our ability is such that we have the confidence of all these players that have been talked about. The agencies, the funding agencies, and the regulatory agencies, they know us. And a lot of times, if you're going after federal money, if we're not there, they're dragging us in, because if they want the confidence that it's going to be fiscally managed properly, all the reporting's done properly, all the bells and whistles and strings that go along with federal money. It's pretty daunting for a lot of people. A lot of times it's hard for you to swallow when you guys get in the game, because it's you say, well, this is kind of ridiculous. Well, I'm not going to disagree, but it is what it is. We got to do it. So that's what we bring to the table. We know all the alphabet soup. We do all, I wrote down at least 15 government agencies that we have in play right now as far as federal money. And we work with those agencies to help you get through it and also protect you from getting an orange suit one day, because we do keep the fiscal management the way it should be done. The other thing is we know the neighbors, we know the locals, we know the mayors, we know the mayor's kids. We can help with that facilitation and that relationship building so that you can come in and be welcomed.
John, thanks for sharing that. And now I'd like to turn it over to our audience. But before I do, I just want to acknowledge this is only 4 perspectives, and a lot of other players can come together, whether it's philanthropy, the financial sector. We heard about there's going to be a huge opportunity for private equity, investment banks, CDFIs, et cetera, to make investments in these projects. There's going to be opportunities for community-based organizations to help communities get to the table. A lot of opportunities for different kinds of organizations to come together, form partners, and ultimately be successful. So with that, I'd love to hear some comments from some other perspectives. Does anybody have a comment or a perspective to share, or maybe a question for our panelists? I see one in the back.
Mike, I'd like to follow up your comment about universities or higher education institutions. What do the different members of the panel look to in terms of how can a university or a college help with these economic development initiatives?
So just late last week, Friday, it's an organization, it's actually a German-based organization that wants to locate in North America. And they'd like to locate in North America because they want to have a relationship with WVU and the Ag and Extension program at WVU. They also would like to connect with West Virginia State University. It's an agricultural project. I can't tell you much more about it, but it's really cool. It would create some great high-paying jobs. And they've come to us to say, we need you to help facilitate a relationship with WVU, with WVU State. And then we really want to locate her here, help us find a place. So opportunities like that come up all the time. And, various and sundry different groups want to connect with higher ed because of, the capabilities they have. There's a cohort here from LG Nova, Life is Good Nova. We announced that project. They're going to start in Morgantown and in Huntington. 2 of their folks will be in our office just across the way there on Thursday, meeting with various and sundry different resources that they want to connect with. So, we stood that up, and that's what we do. So the universities play a vital role. And I think in our economy and in helping sort of figure out what's next. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I'd like. Yeah, I have a thought on that. I mean, our region, when I say our region, Southwestern Pennsylvania, West Virginia, I mean, we are rich with university assets. I mean, it's truly an asset for this part of the country. And admittedly, we have lots of companies that are looking at this area for Carnegie Mellon University, WVU. They want access to the students, right? Which is great. I mean, I don't care what the reason is, as long as they come here. They might need 10 engineers. They're going to need 100 production workers. And so while they're focused on their 10 engineers from CMU or WVU, we can help them engage the rest of the community and build out that workforce. So to me, it's wonderful. It's a huge asset. And I think we need to take advantage of it even more.
Thanks for the question, Dick. And thanks to our panelists. Amanda?
I have a question that kind of builds on that. So I'm thinking about the population of our state and the fact that between the 2010 and 2020 census, we were the only state to lose population. But the density of our population is located within the southern region where there might be some resistance to some of these new companies coming in. And there's also a lot of people. So what types of activities are beneficial to those community members that may be post-college age previously worked in the industry but are looking for new opportunities? How do we go about engaging them effectively to make sure they're ready to support these new manufacturing facilities and other opportunities?
Justin, I wonder if that's for you.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think there's a lot of opportunities there. One, it's just about education, right? To talk to community members where they are. And I think that's one big thing about a lot of these federal grants and programs, right? There's actual requirements to be involved in those communities and get community feedback and take it to them because, you know, there's always this saying, oh, we're going to teach coal miners to code. Well, coal miners don't want to code, right? They want to work with their hands. It's the same thing with trades members. You're not going to put them behind a desk or a computer most of the time. So you got to get understanding of how it goes to work. And so kind of falls into that education thing, right? You've got to have the whole gamut. You got to have the engineer, got to have the people that built the facility and then operate it. And so it's got to be a buy-in from the community. So you got to educate people on the good jobs. And you can do that by hiring local workers, you know, paying, you know, being good community members as a developer. You know, I think about some of our development project partners that have gone in and they started, you know, nonprofits and they do school trips and they provide backpacks for kids in the, you know, summers or, you know, whatever the case may be. And so, you know, just being a good community member, particularly in West Virginia, talk about it, it's a small knit community. And I think we could, the more we work together to make sure that those projects are successful, the better you will be. Because if, you know, we might be scared of the transition from coal, but if you talk about those actual jobs that are going to be there, like a barrel factory, right? Those are real jobs to people. And so when they're real jobs, I think it's easier to kind of get that buy-in.
So just a quick comment on the declining population. You know, for the past 4 years in a row, we've had net in-migration, really big trend, really big change, and that's huge. And so we have to celebrate that. People are finding out West Virginia is a wonderful place to live, work, and play, and they want to take advantage of it. The Ascend program has been, you know, seminal. 44,000 applications for what I think 200 jobs at this point or something like that. But you know, we just have a challenge in that more people are dying than are being born in the state. So we need our youth to stay here, and as you know, the Senate president would say, "Make babies." Forgive me, that's quoting him, not me. Thanks.
See, we have a question. Wait for the mic, please.
Yeah, so I'm one of those net in people, by the way, moved here from California a few years ago. And thinking about people who want to engage with you or with other people who, or other organizations who provide similar services, what is the best way that they can start things off with a bang? So how can they help you help them? What information can they provide? What kinds of background should they give you? Is it helpful for them to, you know, how do you prefer them to engage? Should they be coming to meet you in person? Should they provide you with like a one-page summary of their needs? Like how much prep do they need to do in order to have the best experience with you in that first contact?
So Sarah, I take it you're asking me that question.
Any of you, honestly, any of you.
Well, I mean, I'll just answer it from our perspective. You know, give me a call. We'll set up a meeting and we'll start talking about it and start finding out what those needs look like, what resources they can bring to bear, and who they might need to be connected with. That's what we do. Again, we're a concierge service. So call me, email me, text me, what have you, but you have to go through Vicky Boyd to get on my calendar. So there you go.
And that's the best thing to do. Once you get in touch with him, then when you get down in the weeds, and he's going to get in touch with us, and then we'll help facilitate the infrastructure it takes to put you in play.
I would just follow up, and the sooner the better. So as soon as you know you're doing something, even if it's just kind of a blip of an idea, right? Like there's certain people you can start reaching out to, you know, I think John mentioned it. Not everybody needs to be on the team at the front end, but you can build your team, like get out there early. So, you know, we've had conversations with developers 4 years before they were even applying for a grant, just so that way we would know, and we could also be that kind of messenger on the ground. Hey, they're coming, they're going to hire our people, they're going to be local workers. And so, it doesn't have to be the whole list of nuts and bolts from the beginning, but the sooner you can do it, the better. So it doesn't have to be perfect, but just as soon as possible, I think.
Maybe I'll just chime in a little bit. We got a similar discussion in Pennsylvania last October, and the question was, who do you talk to? And the range was, well, you can reach to us at the IWG, for example. You can talk to the folks that you might know at a federal agency or maybe at a state partner. You can talk to your ad district if you're in Kentucky, or your LDD for ARC parlance, or your EDD. You can talk to any of these organizations. There's no wrong front door. And I would just say, in terms of like a best practice, ideally you come in with understanding a little bit of what you need, particularly with the federal government. I will say the conversations that turn out to be the best use of time, where you have just enough to be able to articulate, well, I'm looking for water and sewer money, or I'm looking for planning dollars or technical assistance on brownfields. Or if you can just provide a little bit of information like that, then we can figure out who are the best agencies to put you in touch with to figure out where the funding is. But don't let that lack of definition stop you from coming in the front door. If you just, hey, I have a vision for how I can revitalize my town, but I'm not really sure where to start, just feel free to send us an email and we can have a consultation or whatever. And just, it's better to get started.
Just to kind of follow up on her question, what are you guys doing to introduce the suppliers to these groups that are interested in trying these new ideas that you're presenting? If I want to supply a product A to help build their infrastructure, what are you guys doing to link the supply to the demand?
So if you're coming in and you're looking for particular products for your supply chain, actually give us a list of those supplies, and our research folks can put you in contact with who might be supplying that product in the state or in the region. And so, there's that. There also been a number of sort of exchanges that have been pretty useful. As an example, the Marshall Advanced Manufacturing event 2 Fridays ago. I think it was 2 Fridays ago. And there were, literally hundreds of companies there, probably had 90 different groups that were displaying their products. And they probably had another, several hundred people come through. And, so a number of those events actually happen from time to time in terms of just exchanging information. And, Derek Scarborough, who put it together, said, I bet there was over $1 million worth of business done. I don't have any way of tracking it, but there were deals done that day. So that's what we can do. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, I talked about this a little bit. I do think we have some tools at our disposal. As the MEPs, we do things like I mentioned, supplier forums and networking events, educational events, anything to bring buyers and sellers together. So I would just say at this point, if you have that opportunity to be somewhere like, make the effort to do that. I would say that's a really good starting point. I think there is a lot of discussions about supplier registries and things like that that are in process. I can't say for sure that they're fully developed yet, but I think in general, there is a strong appetite for buying local, buying regional. And I think some of those things are really going to start to come together.
Great. We have time for maybe one more question or a comment. See you in the back.
I'll kind of come at this from sort of a micro business kind of younger folks, or maybe somebody who's just kind of starting to do business on their own after being in the trades for a while. Say you're running business out of your garage on a weekend, you know, you're small fabricator, people of that nature. But first you got to be to identify a product that you want to start manufacturing. If there's a shortage of that kind of thing, or there's some kind of bottleneck, that's often going to come from the people that are in those industries to know exactly what parts you need. And the people that are going to have the skills to actually manufacture those, that's those people as well. The best thing we can do from the government perspective is probably just to make sure that these people who show some kind of promise of, I don't know, breaking away from regular employment into self-employment and producing parts that assist in our proper, like our full bigger industry. You know, for example, my buddy who used to work at Blanco now began producing tools for the production of hand-blown glass to support their business, things of that nature. But these people that go straight into trades, they often may not have the skills to manage the tax, the administrative, the environmental regulations, things of that nature. You know, there's always the small business administration people like the office over in Huntington, the office here in Charleston, some of those business classes. But many times when you're trying to work during the week and then you're working on your own work during the weekends and after work, it can become challenging. Is there anything that you guys can think about to help facilitate that kind of entrepreneurial spirit?
I'm sure. You know, there's I think in April, Bridging Innovations Week in Huntington, as a matter of fact, and that's sort of the entrepreneurial ecosystem will be there and well represented. And so there are a number of great resources. The West Virginia Business Link is actually an online searchable database that provides access to many different resources across the state that can help. I mean, you specifically identify what you're looking for, type it in, and it'll spit out 6 or 7 different resources that are available to you. The SBDC Center and, you know, Small Business Development Center and the coaches located throughout the state are available for coaching in a number of different areas. Tell them what you need, and they will, you know, help you guide through that. They have a number of different resources, a whole bunch of tools, work very closely with the SBA and all the folks in the, you know, entrepreneurial ecosystem, and it's for free. So I encourage everyone to take advantage of that. If you've got a great idea, you're willing to work hard, and you have the fire in your belly, you can be an entrepreneur. I know, because I was one. Oh, that's right. Thank you very much. West Virginia Hive, you just mentioned that, and they've got a great resource there as well associated with the New River Gorge development area.
I'd also like to flag, if you're in this region, that there's the National Energy Technology Laboratory, which I'm formally connected with, and they work on lab bench pilot scale. So if you're working on clean energy technology, there's an opportunity to partner with. They also do market analysis, techno-economic studies that can be helpful. DOE office has an Office of Technology Transitions, and so that works in that sweet spot between sort of entrepreneurial things and growing them up, as well as a small business innovation research program that can be helpful. So there are a few other resources out there. And finally, just venture capital, they show up at certain events like what Mike was mentioning. I know in the Pittsburgh ecosystem, there's a lot of startups that come together, and they have Shark Tank kind of forums and sharing best practices and lessons learned. And that's a good way to get some exposure to some capital. So I do think that there are things out there. So anyway.
Brian mentioned this morning, the Appalachian Regional Commission, they're into this very heavy, is to trying to get entrepreneurial type things going. So just keep them in mind, because right now they're pumping a lot of money into job creation and entrepreneurship.
Good point, John. With that, why don't we go ahead and bring this panel to a close? Let's thank our panelists. And we are now going to transition into closing remarks, and then we'll kick off the networking and office hours. Next, I'm going to ask Ryan Thorn from the USDA to come up and close us out. But before we do, I just want to say a couple of thank yous. First of all, thanks to our hosts, University of Charleston, for their generous support. And what a great room. It was raining outside, but I really enjoyed meeting all of you in here today, and hopefully you got a lot of value out of it. So thank you for coming. And I'd also like to thank the offices of Senator Capito, Senator Manchin, the state, and a lot of other partners that came together to make sure that you all were aware of this and had the opportunity to be here. So thank you very much for that. And then finally, would encourage you to reach out after the event. We'll have the office hours, so there'll be tables with information and staff that can answer your questions. So hopefully, if something has piqued your interest, you can follow up there, but also just hang around and network and build some connections. And with that, I want to turn it over to Ryan Thorn, who's been a real champion on economic development, very helpful in this event, and in his role with USDA continues to do good work. So thanks, Ryan. Close us out.
On. Well, thanks, Briggs. I was driving down here last night and quickly realized, you ever get that feeling like you're forgetting to do something? You just know, you worked a hard day. I got a late start out of Morgantown down here last night, and I was just thinking, I really forgot to do something. And it was put together talking points for my remarks. So I did that in about 3 minutes right after lunch. So needless to say, I'll probably be very brief, and so we can enjoy the federal the partnering. But first, I just want to thank Brian and Briggs, Secretary Carmichael and Mike, and all my federal cousins at the Department of Energy, and everyone that took time out of your week. When you're in the private sector, when you're in the public sector, we're all busy. So for you all to carve out a portion of your week to join us here, to learn more about 48C and the different programs that are available through the Department of Energy and other agencies, it's definitely appreciated. I've been at rural development for 2 years, almost exactly. I believe my appointment was on the 17th of March, and I think I started on the 24th. So celebrated my 2-year anniversary. Prior to that, I served as Economic Development Manager for Senator Manchin for a little over 5 years. And I will say, I've been hearing about and talking about 48C for what seems like a decade. And a lot of that is because of Zahava Ureki. I know the senator mentioned Zahava earlier, but her and her colleagues on the Energy Committee and the Senate were really the drivers for 48C and what it could do in our communities to spur investment in these communities that have seen a decline in their economies down due to the decline in the fossil fuels industry. I usually start things off by saying what a pleasure and an honor it is to serve West Virginia and her people on behalf of President Biden, Secretary Vilsack, and Undersecretary Good in that rural development. It's definitely a great honor. A lot of folks think of USDA and they initially think, well, what do you all do? Do you inspect meat? You do the SNAP program? Sure, we do that. At rural development, I don't go out there and inspect the beef around West Virginia, but our sister agencies within USDA do that. We have about a dozen agencies under the larger USDA umbrella, but at rural development, we're the community and economic development arm of USDA. We're advocates to, investors in, and partners to rural communities and the people, small businesses, ag producers, local governments that make up those places that we call home. In the last 3 fiscal years, we've invested more than $1 billion in West Virginia. What do we invest in? Infrastructure, basic infrastructure, water and sewer projects, healthcare, hospitals, broadband internet access, high-speed internet access, housing. We have nearly 70 programs at USDA Rural Development. And I often say this in jest, but it's not far from the truth, that you can really build a community from the ground up with the programs that we have at USDA Rural Development. And I say that because our investments are foundational to economic development. If you don't have adequate water and sewer in a community, if you don't have adequate health care, if you don't have adequate childcare, if you don't have adequate education, it's tough to land a new core, as Mike will know. It's tough to land a Form Energy. And so our investments create the foundational necessity in which other investments can build on. And it's been said often, but economic development, it is a team marathon. You're passing that baton, and it is a team marathon. It's definitely not an individual sprint. And it takes a team. And as Mike alluded to, we're a small state, and in the folks that work in economic and community development in this ecosystem and decision makers, it's an even smaller group. And you can really bring that group together in a number of days to work with a prospective company that's looking at West Virginia. So we can tell them about the programs that may be available to assist them, to incentivize them to come here, because I think West Virginia is the greatest place on the world. In the world, there's also 10,000 other municipalities, 50 other states that are also competing for that investment. And it's been said numerous times here, but it's about partnerships, collaboration, communication, and opportunity. At rural development, we can't do anything unless we know there's the need. You know what I mean? And the Department of Energy, they can't do anything unless they know there's the need. Same with our folks at the RPDCs. And usually when there's a need, there's a need in the community. There's two individuals that I usually call that are locally based, and that is the RPDC that represents that area and the Economic Development Authority that represents that area. And then we sort of cobweb it out from there. And they do such great work. If it wasn't for John and Region 4, which is one of our best rural planning and development councils, our planning and development councils, if it weren't for them, it'd be hard for rural development to get our dollars out the door, especially on infrastructure projects. And you've heard a lot about the opportunities ahead of us. As my colleague from the White House alluded to, the Biden administration's invested more than $4 billion in West Virginia through discretionary investments, through formula funding, and that only scratches the surface. I'm sure we could probably add $1 billion or $2 onto that, and it will continue. And talking about opportunity, there's at least a $6 billion opportunity in front of us with 48C. And so we're in unprecedented times. We're not going to see this type of potential investment, at least I don't think we'll see this type of investment and these dollars available from the federal government to help spur new opportunities in our communities ever again. And so we can't afford to seize on the opportunity. And it's great to see Mayor Hunt here. Mayor Hunt is the mayor of New Martinsville, my hometown. And, it just brings it all together. It is a small state. And before I finish, I just want to introduce a few folks from my rural development team. We have Jesse Gandy in the back. Jesse is our business programs director in the state. We have a number of programs that can support energy efficiency projects for small businesses, rural renewable energy projects for small businesses through our REAP program. We received a significant funding increase from the Inflation Reduction Act for that program. And basically it can provide a grant funding to help small businesses, let's say, retrofit their workings to make energy efficient improvements to their facilities, to their equipment. It can also help renewable energy projects. 99% of those are solar in West Virginia. We always joke that we haven't seen our first tidal wave renewable project in the state yet, and just can't think of why. And then we have Kaylee Kyle and Adam Stallings. They work on the Rural Partners Network. And I won't get too deep into the Rural Partners Network because I don't want you to confuse that with the Interagency Working Group for RRT or rapid response teams. So the Rural Partners Network is sort of the Biden administration's initiative, all of government approach to bring resources into historically underserved communities throughout the country. In West Virginia, we have 2 networks, 20 counties, 80 municipalities that represent almost 500,000 of the state's population. And so they're focused on building community development opportunities to in turn, so we can take advantage of those economic development opportunities. They're helping build those foundational items that need to be built in order to bring those investment dollars to our communities. And I'm sure in the months to come, you'll hear a little bit more about the interagency working group's rapid response teams in West Virginia. So be on the lookout for that news in the coming months. I believe we'll have another event in probably the summer to highlight the official launch of the state's rapid response teams. And I apologize if I'm getting ahead of Briggs or Brian on that. But excited to help coordinate those efforts. And I also, I have Andrew Stacy here. Andrew's my public information officer in the state, and he does great work and makes sure that our investments are amplified and that folks know that our programs are out there for application. So yeah, if I can leave you with just one thing, it's collaboration, it's partnerships, communication. We can't accomplish much if we're all trying to work independently, but you see, if we work together, we can accomplish a lot in this state. And if we continue to work together, you know, when rural communities thrive, West Virginia thrives. And when West Virginia thrives, the United States thrives. And it's hard for me not to believe that. And so by continuing to work together, West Virginia will continue to prosper. But I appreciate the opportunity to provide a few words with you. Again, thank you for coming out. If I can ever be of assistance, please don't hesitate to reach out. I'm happy to facilitate any connection that you may need, whether it be with our state partners, my federal colleagues, our philanthropic partners, or those in the private sector. I'm happy to make any of those connections that you may need. But thank you all so much, and I look forward to joining you during our open office hours. But thank you all so much.